Thanks,
so
Anita.
we have a presentation there. So same applies, just a minute, 12 minutes. You'll see me appearing at 10. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Angelica. I'm going to make a start, and Diarmaid's going to come in a minute. So today we're going to talk about spatial thinking in higher education. So we received funding from the National Forum to undertake this work. So my name is Dr. David Tanner. I'm a lecturer in the School of Engineering, and I'm lucky enough to work with Dr. Diarmaid Lane in the School of Education. So in terms of spatial thinking, we can think in terms of the scale of environments. And the presentation, the out of my window presentation by Marie and Scott was very interesting from this perspective. So defining space and the scale of environments and being able to translate that from words into images. As engineers and scientists, we have to think in terms of lots of different scale of objects. So we think from a nanoscale or a molecular scale all the way up to real physical parts. Or if you're doing medicine, you might be translating two-dimensional images into three-dimensional problems or anatomy. So we can think of spatial thinking as a collection of cognitive skills comprised of knowing concepts of space, using tools of representation and reasoning, and that's the definition that's given by the NRC in 2006. So we know from recent studies that Irish adolescents don't perform so well in space and shape and geometry, shapes and measures, and this is especially notable for female students who underperform their male colleagues. These differences are also found in the States, so a study by Hegarty has also shown this. And we know that strong spatial skills are an indicator of success in STEM disciplines. So the bad news is that our students have poor spatial skills and it's more pronounced in female students. But the good news is that these skills are malleable. We can provide a different set of tools and strategies to help students and to improve their skills so that they can perform better in STEM subjects. And combined with that, research has shown that by implementing these strategies in the first year, it can help with first year attention. So that's something that we definitely all are interested in. Recent studies have also shown that this is kind of being ignored. Way back as far as 2006 in the USA, they said it was a major blind spot and a missing link to the research that was available. So essentially, there seems to be a need for basic research in this area to improve spatial thinking among young adolescents to help them through college and help them to achieve good grades and obviously go on and have a future career. So what we've covered a lot of stuff in the study so far, but what we're going to focus on really are the views of teaching staff in terms of spatial thinking at the University of Limerick. So is spatial thinking important at UL? Do teaching staff notice students struggling with spatial thinking? And do teaching staff actively use spatial thinking tools and strategies in their teaching? So I'll hand over to Diarmaid now to explain how he did it. Diarmaid, I can't hear you. You're on mute. Yeah.
Thanks, David. Okay, so just so everybody's aware, this is a project we've been working on for the last 14 or 15 months. And today we just want to share a small piece of this project with you in terms of a staff survey that we employed before Christmas of last year. And as part of the study, we were looking at both the students in UL and their studies and the development of spatial thinking, but also staff's views around spatial thinking and staff's skills and knowledge in relation to spatial thinking also. You can see up in the top right hand corner that our study over the last year or so has been very much multidisciplinary, and so we've been dipping in and out of different areas. In relation to the target cohort for this particular survey, we sent out an email to 168 teaching staff, both academic and technical support staff, as many technicians teach in our lab environments in UL. And we sent this across 6 different disciplines: architecture, business, engineering, medicine, product design and science. Now, we just sent the email out once. We didn't want to be overburdening people with, because we all get lots of emails about different surveys. The survey details were 4 very basic questions. On what course and modules do you teach in UL? Do you agree or not if spatial thinking is important for student success in the modules you teach? How much do you agree with the statement that my students find spatial thinking easy? And we also asked the staff if they use a variety of tools and strategies. And we used 5-point Likert scales, and we then provided staff with an option to provide a comment to support their answer. So very, very quick survey. And we just wanted to get a snapshot really across the different disciplines. So we had 37 responses to the survey. It was lower than what we would have liked, so 22% response rate. And you can see the responses there with the majority of responses coming from the engineering discipline, which is quite a large number of people in UL. So we'd like to frame these responses and these findings just by giving you a picture of the 3 main questions, what the data looks like for them, both the quantitative and the thematic analysis of the qualitative comments, supporting comments. So you can see for this first question, spatial thinking skills are important for the students to be successful in the modules I teach. And we can see by and large that the majority of teaching staff at UL who responded either agreed or strongly agreed with that particular statement. But it's also interesting to note that there's a cohort that disagreed and some that neither agree or disagreed. So just to get a little bit further insight into that, we looked at a thematic analysis of the responses, and you can see one of them is, it's not my responsibility. It's not relevant for the modules that I teach. That came from somebody who's teaching on a program called Construction Management and Engineering, and an interdisciplinary program. I teach on a social science orientated module, so it's not really kind of my responsibility, don't really do it. Even though there's evolving literature and research studies that are showing the importance of spatial thinking now in humanities and social sciences, and we'll talk about that shortly. I'm not familiar with spatial thinking, even though we provided them with a very detailed description of spatial thinking. Some people said they have no idea what spatial thinking is, and that came from somebody in engineering. Some people then spoke about the cross-disciplinary importance of spatial thinking from both an environmental science and a chemistry perspective. So an example provided there, looking at wastewater treatment processes. And then when we looked at design-focused disciplines, we really got an insight into the higher order thinking skills associated with studying product design and architecture, and these appeared to be very strong disciplines in relation to spatial thinking, and in some ways no real surprise. So we can see things like orientation, direction, trajectory, connecting, judging space at every scale, and one of the staff members said it's critical to all good architecture. The next question in relation to my students find spatial thinking easy, we can see there was very much a middle ground struck here, and the majority of teaching staff neither agreed nor disagreed with that, and we had some staff at either side. And in relation to the comments provided, we could see that some staff said that there were struggles with disciplinary thinking, that students struggle with problems in terms of internally visualizing flows, and they have general difficulty in grasping 3D arrangements of buildings and components from 2D representations. Further to that, what really emerged, especially in the science disciplines and in the engineering disciplines as well, was that there was mixed abilities evident. That didn't really come across from maybe the product design or the architecture disciplines so much. So we can see here that issues around time, and every student kind of tackles spatial problems in different ways, and time is a factor there as well. One of the architecture staff members said that there's misunderstandings about spatial thinking, and just because you studied graphics in secondary school doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at spatial thinking. And another staff member from science spoke about the difficulties in looking at 2D images and trying to visualize the 3D equivalents. The last question that we looked at is, as staff members, do you use a variety of tools and strategies in your teaching of spatial concepts? And we can see here there's very much a spread across the disagree to strongly or to agree. Some people say that it's not for all teachers. So that came again from the social sciences, from that staff member in construction management and engineering. Interestingly, one of the staff members from the school, the Kimmy Business School, spoke about how they use spatial thinking as a metaphor to help students understand different concepts within their discipline. Somebody in product design spoke about spatial thinking has been important, but we don't explicitly teach it. It's kind of embedded in the activities that they do. And then what we also found that some teaching staff use a variety of different methods in terms of helping students to conceptualize different scenarios. But sometimes, as noted there by one of the architecture members, they said that it can sometimes be overwhelming if we use different tools and strategies to help students think spatially. So just in terms of the conclusions for our presentation and just this snapshot that we're providing you with, spatial thinking is generally viewed as important for success across disciplines in UL. There are strong foundations appear to exist in design-focused disciplines, but when we look at interdisciplinary disciplines such as engineering, science, business, the views of staff are a little bit more mixed. And this, for us, is really shows the potential for further development in these areas. So for staff development, in terms of thinking about spatial thinking, the tools and the strategies, how do we cater for greater levels of mixed ability in these interdisciplinary programs, and how do we help to integrate modules in interdisciplinary programs? So for example, that's that person from construction management and engineering. And I suppose the other big thing then is how do we improve third level students in working with different types of information and different types of data beyond words and numbers? And the last thing is spatial thinking in our education system. Who's taking responsibility for it in UL, in Mary Immaculate College, in Limerick Institute of Technology? There appears to be a missing link in our education system, and perhaps we need to dig a little bit deeper and provide opportunities for all our students, male and female, in developing their spatial capacities in third level. A need to extend our vision for field-based research and spatial thinking. So maybe for potential opportunities for us in UL to engage with industries and different partners. Spatial skills are malleable, so we don't give up when students come in first year if they have poor spatial skills. They can be taught and developed. And there's broader societal challenges then around gender stereotypes, etc. as well. And this has particular importance around STEM education. These are select references. And just one last thing to note, earlier this year in January, we held an international seminar series on spatial thinking with world-renowned researchers. If you want some information on that, please let myself or David know, and we'd be happy to provide that information for you. So hopefully you've got a snapshot into Think Spatial UL and this small little study that we wanted to share with you. Thank you.